Hey everyone, this is Nick from Fear and Beer, back with another Halloween Horror Nights homework episode. Today we are going to be diving into the world that is Terrifier. So in this episode, we're really going to go through the movies. There's only 3 that we really need to discuss. We'll talk about where Art the Clown came from before. We're going to go into some of his best kills and stuff that I think might make its way into this year's Halloween Horror Nights house. Terrifier and Art the Clown have kind of hit the ground running, becoming a very recent staple in the horror community. Terrifier and Art the Clown's popularity has risen tremendously as of late. Art's sadistic, gruesome, gory kills, all while keeping this nonchalant attitude, has really been the reason why he has skyrocketed into the pantheon of horror and slasher icons. Now, before we get into the movies, let's get into where Art the Clown came from, this character. It wasn't Terrifier 1. That movie used a character that Damien Leone, or Leone, I've heard both be used. I'm not sure which one's right, so I'm just going to say Leone. That's the way I'm going with it. But before the 2016 Terrifier film, Art the Clown was used in 2 previous installments. They were both short films, one being called The Ninth Circle, which came out in 2008, and the second one being called Terrifier, which was in 2011. Both of those shorts were sort of repurposed and mashed up into an anthology series called All Hallows Eve. This one had Art the Clown, but it also had some other stuff. We covered it on Shutter Sundays, and, well, this is like a weird robot person. No. Damien pieced all these together to show he could do a feature length in hopes that this Terrifier, this Art the Clown, would take off, and that it did. Now, as we discuss these films, there are intense gore scenes. I'm going to do my best to describe it as, well, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you that he cuts the out of people. And funny enough, while I was doing research, Damien Leone, obviously a New York native, Staten Island, but the county or borough, whatever you want to describe it as, where he came from was called Great Kills. Very fitting that Damien Leone came from Great Kills, New York. Now, before we get into things, this is a very gory film. The kills are sadistic, they are brutal, there is nudity. If this is not your cup of tea, I don't know what to tell you. This is what's coming to Horror Nights. So let's get into these movies a little bit. So Terrifier, 2016. This debuted at the Telluride Horror Show in 2016, but did have a limited theatrical run on March 15th and 16th in 2018. It was also re-released in 700 theaters on July 19th, 2023. Leone tried to raise funds for Terrifier with an Indiegogo campaign, which we'll talk about for Terrifier 2 because kind of roles reversed here. But for Terrifier 1, it fell short. Producer Phil Falcone stepped in last minute and contributed the remaining funds so they could get this film in motion, and he was able to grab a producer credit in the process. Now, the first Terrifier was filmed on just a budget of $35,000 to $55,000. The number is sort of debatable, but it did finish with a $420,000 box office run. Terrifier 1 is the shortest of the 3, with a runtime of 1 hour and 25 minutes. This one acts really as an homage to those 80s slasher horror films. It takes it a step further with the kills, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty simplistic movie with not much going on. You can tell with this there is a higher production value from his previous shorts, and the special effects take a little bit of a step forward, but once we see 2 and 3, the special effects in 1 do seem a little dated. Terrifier 1 opens up with this really gnarly, disfigured woman who survived a massacre of the previous year. She's on TV, she's being interviewed, kind of in a rude fashion. Spoiler alert, she gets her revenge, and I don't think that she's that unjustified. After the interview, Victoria does go a little crazy. She attacks and kills and disfigures the TV host herself after hearing her being mocked. Now, the timelines get a little weird, so we're going to explain all of that later as we go, but the fact that it opens with 1 year ago and then jumps into the movie, we're kind of assuming that we're at the right timeline, but at the end you find out it's not. It's a little jumbled, so we'll discuss it at the end. Well, like I said, this movie is really bare bones in terms of plot. It's full of sadistic, gory, downright repulsive kills, but kind of all in the best way. We see Art scalping people, sawing them in half in their birthday suit, playing a game of soccer with some poor bastard's head, and even pulling his gat out. Hate it. Hate that part. We'll get to it. But what it comes down to is Art is really fixated on the two sort of main characters, Tara and Dawn. He sees them post-Halloween party, and he follows them to a little pizza shop, and it turns out to be a really shitty situation. See what I did there? It sort of turns into this cat and mouse game until he finally abducts them. He brings them to this abandoned building, and this is when things really turn upside down. Tara enters the building willingly, trying to find a place to go to the bathroom, while Dawn gets pulled in there. But what Tara doesn't know is Art is lurking around every corner, seemingly. So he grabs her, she's tied up, and that's when it is unveiled that Dawn is his next victim. This might be Art's most iconic kill, as we see Dawn fully naked, upside down, getting sawed in half, starting at her... Well, I'll let you just figure that one out for yourselves. But Tara, being forced to watch, she finally gets loose and sort of gets the upper hand of Art, until he reaches down to his ankle, pulls out his gun, and decides to blast his way out.
Just me and my sidearm, and I had no other alternative but to blast my way out.
Yeah, I hate it. I can't stand that Art uses a gun. I get it. They want to show that he's willing to do everything and anything, which we'll find that out even more so in the next films, but I just can't stand whenever he uses a gun. After disposing our two main characters seemingly halfway through this film, we're kind of left with even less story than we had going into this. Until Victoria, Tara's sister, finally shows up to pick her sister up. This is where she finds Tara lifeless, and Art begins the pursuit of Victoria now. After that, it's seemingly again more of this cat and mouse style game. We're introduced to some random side characters that don't mean anything to the plot, or whatever plot there is. But Art kills some unlucky custodian and then hits Victoria with a car. The police show up, Art takes the easy way out and just, again, takes the gun out and shoots himself in the head right in front of the cops before he could be arrested. But Victoria is still alive. But it's not over there. Towards the end, Art actually is proving to be alive still at the morgue. And it ends showing us this other location of a hospital with somebody being released. She's sitting in a wheelchair so you can't see her face, and they're talking, and you find out that it is Victoria. As she turns around in the wheelchair, you can now see that this is the disfigured woman that was shown at the beginning of the movie on the TV broadcast being interviewed. Whoa. Now, this surprise did throw me off. Not in a shock way, it just messed with the whole timeline of the movie for me. Because there was no end point where it says, 1 year ago. It tells us on the interview, oh, last year you were attacked in the Miles County massacre, but you survived. And then it kind of jumps right into the film. So you're assuming Art is in real time. But then at the end, it throws this curveball where, no, everything we saw was a year ago, and the bookends of the movie were the year after. It gets a little confusing, I know. So what did I think of Terrifier 1? I thought it was okay gore. I thought I had a pretty shitty filter look over everything. It just looked like they put some kind of LUT over everything to make it look like this grungy, grindhouse 80s film, which I think just has to do with the budget of the film not being able to shoot it as well as they would have liked, but it looked just murky. Maybe that's the look they were going for, but you can see in Terrifier 2 and 3, they were able to upgrade and it looks a lot better. So I think they were just making do with what they had. Biggest problem I have with this movie is it's just useless characters. None of them matter. Tara and Dawn, they're stalked and killed, and there's no stakes because we don't know them. We're barely introduced to them as who they are as people, and we get really bad acting from them.
Shut up. Hello?
But on top of Dawn and Tara, we get this homeless lady, we get the custodian, we get the pizza staff, and they're all just kind of done away with. And again, they're great kills, but it doesn't mean anything to us. And the fact that Art pulls a gun out as a last resort just was laugh out loud outrageous. Not in a good way. So Terrifier 2. After the cult success of Terrifier 1, in 2019, Damien Leone stated that a sequel for Terrifier was in the works. It was in production, and they already had the sequel script written. The film went into production October of 2019. Now, much like with Terrifier 1, they attempted to do an Indiegogo campaign to get the budget for this film. However, this one went way different than last time. So Leone did secure financing from private investors, but he also launched an Indiegogo campaign, and the campaign was a massive success. Of the $50,000 that they were requesting, they were able to secure around $250,000 to make this film the way they wanted to. Now, the filming of this did get slowed down a little bit due to COVID. Towards the end, it had to shut down, but they were able to resume production in September of 2020, and they wrapped shooting in 2021. This film debuted at the Aero Video Fright Fest in London, England on August 29th, 2022, before receiving the nationwide rollout in US, which was on October 6th, 2022. Now, like we said, the budget of this film, mostly crowdfunded, was $250,000, but the box office return was enormous. This thing made $15.7 million. Art the Clown was clearly off the ground and running, and run did he, because the runtime on this thing, woof, 2 hours and 8 minutes. This is a long one. It's a clear departure from the previous Terrifier film. This one picks up right where we left off. Art is in the coroner's office, but he's still somehow alive. It doesn't really fully get explained, but we can just assume he has some sort of demonic entity that is able to bring him back to life. Just after the Miles County Massacre, he kills the mortician, he steals his eye, and he's off to do some laundry. This is where we're introduced to the side character that has been dubbed Little Pale Girl, who seemingly ate way too much Taco Bell before she went to do her laundry. She's sort of this figment of Art's imagination, but even this gets a little messy because as the movie goes on, we see other characters can see her as well. So it's not just a figment of Art's imagination, it sort of dips into the main characters as well. After the scene of the laundry room, which is after the Miles County Massacre, we seemingly fast forward again to that year. So this would be the time where that TV show was airing because our characters are talking about the Miles County Massacre as last year. So it gets a little jumpy right there. This is where we are introduced to our typical horror family. The overworked, short-tempered, widowed mother, the weird younger brother, and the older sister who has to kind of pick up the slack for everybody else. Even still being this sort of typical horror family, we do get a very strong female lead of Sienna, played by Lauren Lavera. Sienna's name, cool little tie-in. This was from burnt sienna, a common color used by Bob Ross, and they decided to use this name because her father is an artist. And this is what Terrifier 1 was drastically missing. A strong contrast protagonist to combat Art. And we get that in Sienna. And in Terrifier 2, Art definitely has a more clear-cut mission. He targets Sienna and Jonathan Shaw, and they serve as this rival to Art. Throughout the movie, Sienna sees Art in her nightmares. One in particular is this really fun, colorful setting, the Clown Cafe. And it even comes with a cool theme song that will never leave your mind.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
Here, we see that Art started to corner a new market. Breakfast foods. That's right, Art Krispies, which is a cereal with all your nutritional needs. Crickets, maggots, razor blades. Yep, they're feeding it to a kid. In this weird little world, all these adults are dressed up as children. It's a weird, fever-dreamy kind of thing until Art decides to do his best, Angels with Filthier Souls.
I'm gonna give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, yellow, no-good keister off my property before I pump your guts full of lead.
We do sort of flirt with this whole mystical fantasy world because Sienna, for Halloween, is dressing up as almost this winged Xena warrior princess who is from her father's imagination. Her father had drawn this character in the past and she's bringing it to life. But at the end of the Clown Cafe scene, the sword that she's going to use as a prop makes its presence known, and it teases this mythical ability behind it, which we don't fully delve into, but it definitely has sort of a underlying tone throughout the whole film. Art in this one does his thing again. Sadistic kills, even more brutal than the first. One in particular, he proves just how salty of a killer he is. You could say the scene is overkill. He's scalping this poor girl. He's ripping her arms off like chicken wings. It's brutal. And this is one of our bigger problems with this movie, and the next one, and I think in the first one too, but some of these kills are so ridiculous, yet these characters are still alive. Like, I get it. It's a horror movie. I get it. But there's no way this girl is still sitting in her bed speaking words to her mother. Eventually, through the film, Sienna is out at her Halloween party, doing her thing, when Art kills her mother and kidnaps Jonathan. He brings Jonathan and this sword that was passed down from her father to the Terrifier haunted house. The little pale girl is sort of Art's voice, and she can have the ability to kind of throw voices and mimic voices. It's not defined exactly what her powers are, but she's able to convince Sienna to come get Jonathan from the Terrifier house by using his voice over the phone. Again, we're sort of back into Terrifier 1's kind of cat and mouse game. This whole haunted house is set up, and Art's doing his thing, killing Sienna's friends who drove her there, all while she's trying to find Jonathan in the funhouse. We have a long, drawn-out battle scene between the two of them, stabbing, going back and forth, but Sienna is eventually stabbed and falls into this portal from hell, I guess? She falls through the portal of hell into this water tank, which is in the Clown Cafe, and she eventually drowns to death. However, the power from the sword seemingly falls down, heals her cut, and gives her the ability to be reborn again. So she comes back up to the real world. As she comes back, she cuts Art's head off clean, and the little pale girl, who is apparently real, I don't know, she picks up his head and scurries off. In the mid-credit scene, Victoria, now institutionalized, is writing Vicky and Art and other obscenities on the wall in her own blood. She starts to bleed out blood and eventually gives birth to a new Art head. I don't know how that happens or how that works, but it does. And guess who's at this hospital? None other than the Ayatollah of rock and rolla. That's right, Chris Jericho. What's he doing here? Now, the ending of this film did get changed. Originally, Art was going to grow out of the back of Victoria's head, sort of like Voldemort from Harry Potter. But that very year, Malignant came out, and Damien Leone had no idea that's the direction they were going to go with it. So instead of essentially doing the same thing they did, they went back and reshot the ending where Vicky births the head. This is the film that really pushes Art beyond your typical slasher. It is this more demonic, mythic, kind of deep lore villain versus your typical slasher. We're not told all of this, but the fact that he's able to not just come back to life, but reanimate through other people and summon the little pale girl, there's something there that we just don't know yet. Now, my overall thoughts on Terrifier 2, this is a giant step forward from Terrifier 1. It looks better, it has a clear story, it has a nice protagonist in Sienna to combat Art. The kills are just as brutal as you would expect. The soundtrack is amazing. We get a lot of these very nice 80s synth sounds, which is always welcome in a slasher film. And the color correction is just way better. This is how I think they wanted the first one to look, but due to budget restrictions, they kind of were left with what they had. And now Terrifier 2 and 3 can kind of move forward with a much better look. Terrifier 3. Now, following the critical and commercial success of Terrifier 2, Leone began writing the film immediately. Terrifier 3 premiered at Fantastic Fest on September 19th, 2024, and was theatrically released in the US October 11th. Now, this one had a much bigger budget. This budget was $2 million, and it grossed $90.3 million at the box office. This is the highest grossing unrated film in history. Now, the runtime on this one, it's still lengthy, but not as long as Terrifier 2. This one came in at 2 hours and 5 minutes. However, it felt a little longer than the second one. Now, the biggest difference in Terrifier 3 is it sort of dips its toes into this Christmas subgenre. They don't delve into it too much. I think it was just a fun way to get Art in a different suit, give him the little Santa hat, and make it a little bit stand out on its own. But this thing opened with an absolute bang. It opens with Art doing what most horror movies are afraid to do, and that is completely dismembered children.
I mean, wake up! Santa's downstairs! Juliet, I told you to stay out of my room.
On Christmas. Children. He attacks his poor family in the nighttime. The dad, killed in his sleep. The son, killed in his sleep. The mom kind of gets the worst of it. And the little girl, hiding in the cupboard, well, I guess we can only assume what happens to her next. After that, we sort of pick up right where we left off. Art's headless body kills one of the policemen and starts walking over to Victoria to go find his head. After that, we finally get to see Chris Jericho bite the dust. Now that Art has his head on straight, they kind of voyage off, they go into this house, and they go into this 5-year slumber? We take a 5-year jump. I don't know if it's a power or whatnot, but they sort of went into hibernation mode. Victoria going into this tub and just filling it with shit and sleeping in it. And Art kind of doing his best Black Christmas impersonation by putting a rocking chair in the top of a window and just calling it a day. Now that 5 years has passed, we pick up on the Sienna-Jonathan storyline. Sienna has finally been released from this mental facility that she's kind of been in and out of for the past 5 years. Sienna goes back home, and apparently she's living with her aunt and uncle and little cousin now. Lauren Rivera gives an emotional survivor guilt-ridden performance that was really lacking in the first two. Her strong presence in 2 was one thing, but bringing it on this level in the third movie is very impressive. Sienna is not only feeling the guilt, but she's also seeing it firsthand. Damien Leone brought this really gruesome, blood-soaked way to bring her past into life, where she is now seeing her past friends that have been brutally murdered, kind of giving it back to her, saying it's all her fault. We now catch up with Art and Victoria, who are still in the middle of their hibernation state, when 2 construction workers stumble into the wrong house. This is when they both wake up, attack them, and Victoria really likes what she sees because she starts to glasturbate all over the place. Yeah, this is how we're starting. Killing kids and getting yourself off with shards of glass. Typical Art fashion, he just straight up rips this guy's entire face off, and we are now off and running. Just to speed through things a little bit, because these kills kind of fall into the bad habit of Terrifier 1, where they're all characters we don't care about. Art goes to a bar and kills a bunch of drunk patrons. He kills a guy dressed up as Santa and takes his suit. He goes to a mall and sits there as Santa, which, this is the third movie, right? Everybody knows who Art the Clown is. How are people seeing this person and not saying anything?
Hey, Santa's handing out presents!
He's in newsletters. He's online. He's on the TV show. He has a podcast about him. How do people not know that this is Art the Clown? But he portrays Santa at a mall, and one unlucky little kid opens up a box and boom goes the dynamite.
Back in line, kids. Time for the real Santa.
I wonder what I got. Hurry!
Yeah, Art bombed a mall on Christmas. I think he's a terrorist. But Art proves that he's back in a big way. In the meantime, Sienna keeps having these visions of Art, and she tries to contact Jonathan to go over the past and all this stuff, because Jonathan got this thing stirring that this is a little bit deeper than just a creepy clown trying to kill her. There's mythos here, and she's meant to be the one to combat Art.
We have to destroy the little girl before it's too late, Sienna. Destroy her because she's inhuman, a demon.
But we don't talk about it too much. It kind of gets pushed to the sideline. But Sienna visits Jonathan at college and tells him she's got to go back to the Terrifier to get the sword, because apparently she left it there or buried it. I don't know why you wouldn't keep that thing on you. But it's never that simple. Art finds his way to Jonathan's college somehow, where he overhears his roommate and his roommate's girlfriend talking about how, oh, she would love to see face to face what it means to be that close to a killer.
I want to know what it's like to be in the presence of that kind of evil.
Well, it is Christmas. Ask and you shall receive. Art does his best Leatherface impersonation and really catches them off guard, giving us one of the most painful kills to ever watch. Grundle saw. That's right. We kind of recreate that kill from the first movie, but now the guy gets it. Balls and all. After that, we do get this nice little iconic shot of Art making a snow angel in the blood, or a blood angel. Pretty fun. Now we kind of just speed to the ending at this point. It's an absolute bloodbath, but it is rushed. We return to Sienna's aunt and uncle's house, which they've already done the damage. Art and Victoria are already making themselves at home, and they've killed half of the cast off screen. Jonathan is gone. Her uncle is gone. I just don't get why those characters didn't get the kills on screen for that emotional purpose that we deserve to get. Sienna's aunt kind of gets the worst of it. She was alive, and again, much like most of Art's victims, she is tied down and helpless, as is Sienna. Art hammers in a tube into her mouth, puts rats in it, and starts to light a fire so they burrow out, until so graciously slits her throat so the rats can escape through her jugular. Gruesome. We get another Sienna Art fight with the whole mystical dagger, much like the second movie. kind of repeating beats here. But we really get heavy-handed this whole good versus evil thing as Victoria puts this crown of thorns on Sienna, and it's just truly this religious imagery that's coming into play hardcore now.
Everything you love is gone. There is no hope. There is no God.
Sienna slits Art's throat, stabs Victoria in the face, and then cuts her head off. And after a chainsaw sword battle with Art, Sienna is forced to chew through her uncle's intestines, which Art was using to strangle her. She finally gets the upper hand, drives the sword into Art's chest until his eyes go white. During this, however, the blood from Victoria was oozing and bubbling until it finally opened up a portal to hell, or the ninth circle, and Gabby falls in. As Sienna tries to reach and pull her up, Art dips out of there faster than a dad saying he's going to get milk and some smokes. But Sienna wasn't able to pull Gabby out, and she fell into the circle of hell, and it closed up. After that, Sienna's wounds sort of magically heal, and she vows to find and save Gabby, and we can only assume that this is where the fourth movie is going to pick up. Now, my overall thoughts on Terrifier 3, it goes a little backwards story-wise. Terrifier 2 was such a nice, concrete battle of Sienna and Art. Everybody Art killed, Sienna had some interaction with, whereas in Terrifier 3, he's just killing random people again, and the ending was just so incredibly rushed. Now, there was a lot cut out of this movie, so maybe we're missing important beats, but if you're forced to cut something, you can cut inconsequential kills if that means giving us the death of Jonathan on screen. So having Art and Sienna kind of on these different roads kind of hurt the movie for me, because all of the kills of Art, they didn't affect the story at all. I just don't get how people don't recognize this guy yet. I mean, he's in clown makeup, generally covered in blood, carrying a trash bag. It's pretty easy to spot. Victoria being sort of this Art sidekick, kind of taking on the role of the little pale girl, is good, but you gotta differentiate her a little bit. I mean, she's only in the ending and kind of the beginning. The middle part where Art's out doing his business, she's not there. So it's a weird gap that we just go without seeing her. And as far as the stakes go, it seemed pretty low just because that whole Art Sienna storylines, they weren't converging. So at the end, it really picked up, but it was almost too little too late. Let's go into the timeline a little bit, because as we said, Terrifier 3 has this 5-year jump. Terrifier 1 does this weird thing where it's like 1 year ago, now we're in a story, and then it just gets a little jumbled. So let's lay the timeline out for everybody flat. October 31st, 2017, the Miles County Massacre. This is where Terrifier 1 starts post-interview. So we're talking Tara and Don, pizza shop, going to the abandoned warehouse and killing all them, ending with Art killing himself and being taken to the morgue. Once at the morgue, this is when Art comes back to life, gets a new eye, and gets on out of there. From there, he leaves the morgue, goes to the laundromat, and that's where we see the little pale girl in Terrifier 2. This is all seemingly the same night of the Miles County Massacre. Now you flash forward to pieces of Terrifier 1 and 2, because October 30th, 2018, Victoria, after 1 year, is released from the hospital and goes on television to report about the massacre and get interviewed. This takes place the same time in Terrifier 2, because as we start Terrifier 2, we are told this has been 1 year since the massacre.
He wants to dress up as a real guy who murdered 9 people last year.
Oh, you're not doing that?
October 31st, 2018, this is pretty much all of Terrifier 2 taking place. And we're talking the getting ready for the party, going to the party, Art killing all of Sienna's family essentially, and it ends when Sienna cuts off Art's head and the little pale girl takes his head off screen. Terrifier 3 picks up on that same date, because that's when we see Art's headless body killing the policeman, going over to the institute to find Victoria, who has now birthed Art's head, puts his head on, gets on out there, and goes into his 5-year hibernation. Now, December 21st, 2023, this is where we pick up from that 5-year wake up. On this date, this is where we get to see Sienna getting checked out of the hospital, Jonathan is off in college, and presumably this is the same day that Art and Victoria wake up from their 5-year hibernation period. That night, Art goes to the bar, kills the Santa, gets the Santa suit. December 22nd, 2023, this is where the cold open of Terrifier 3 comes in, because in that, Art already has the whole Santa outfit, and it seems like they're in bed. So we're assuming that this is the night after he killed all those people at the bar, because it was late night. So he went from the bar to this person's house in the middle of the night to kill the family, and then went on throughout that whole day to essentially be all of Terrifier 3. This is when he goes to the mall and blows it up. This is when he goes to the college. This is when Sienna is really starting to see visions of Art and trying to rally everybody together and get them all convinced that Art is actually the one behind all of this. December 23rd, 2023, this is assuming that all the final act of Terrifier 3 is in this nighttime, early morning portion of the day. This is when Sienna sees that her family is essentially all massacred, and Gabby falls into the portal of hell, and it kind of ends there. And that's where we leave off. As we mentioned, the timeline is pretty fluid, but it gets a little dicey because they take bits of other movies and kind of intertwine it. And that's one of the bigger flaws, I think, in Terrifier 3 and 2 and stuff like that. It seems like every time they do another one, they're like, well, this didn't really make sense, so we'll just kind of fix it in the next one, and we'll make it work one way or another. And they don't really directly say, this was this year, this was this year. There's one title card where it says, 1 year later or something like that. So it just gets a little confusing at times. Now let's get into Art the Clown a little bit. In the early appearances of Art the Clown, Terrifier, and All Hallows Eve in the Ninth Circle, he was portrayed by Mike Gianelli before his retirement from acting. He wasn't really an actor, but he was one of Damien's friends, and he kind of helped him out film these shorts. Once Damien really wanted to push Terrifier into this feature-length world, Mike was told that he had to sort of lose weight because he always envisioned Art as this tall, lanky character. But Mike decided he didn't really want to do that, he didn't want to deal with all the makeup, and he wasn't an actor, so he kind of was forced to cast a new Art the Clown. This is where David Howard Thornton stepped in. He auditioned, and right off the bat, Damien knew. He said he was the look and the feel. During his audition, David Howard Thornton mimicked a kill, tasted some blood, did the I don't know face, did a little miming salt shaker, and then drank it, and then he just skipped his way out. And they knew. That was Art the Clown. David often refers to Art the Clown as sort of this evil Mr. Bean, which I absolutely love, because that was one of my favorites growing up. This was his first acting role in a feature length. He was more of a theater actor up to this point, with a little bit of miming history in the background. And without David Howard Thornton taking over this role, I don't think Art the Clown or Terrifier gets the popularity that it is today. He absolutely makes this role. The silent laughing, the head tilts, the ability to go from sadistic to happy is just unmatched. A lot of these takes that we see in these movies, it's just Howard fucking around, and they work so well that Damien puts it into the movie. We can thank the appearance of Art the Clown on Pennywise, the Tim Curry version, because Damien wanted to stray so far from that, he contrasted it almost at every step of the way. He wanted no talking, he didn't want it to be colorful, he didn't want hair, and he wanted it to be a really simplistic black and white character, and that's where we arrived at Art the Clown. After the commercial success of Terrifier, David Howard Thornton reprised the role of Art in sort of this short film that served as a music video for Ice Nine Kills and their song A Work of Art, which is based off the film series and was actually commissioned to be used in the Terrifier 3 film, which you can hear in the background playing in Jonathan's college room. Art's background does remain fairly ambiguous, but Leone has stated that in Terrifier 4 we're going to dive into that, so I hope it buttons up a lot of this as to what is he? Is it a demon? Is he possessed? Is he just evil entity that can't die? Because his powers are kind of all over the board. Now let's get into the top 5 kills of the Terrifier franchise. Now, these kills are absolutely brutal. There's no way to sugarcoat it, but they are fun to watch. If you're not into the gore porn, it's not for you, I get it. But the creative practical effects behind it is really astonishing in what they accomplished with what they had. The budgets for these films weren't really ridiculous, especially the first two, and pulling off what they did, kudos to them. Coming in at number 5 would be the Santa kill from Terrifier 3. As you expected, Art didn't just go to a store and buy a Santa outfit for Terrifier 3. He took it, and he took it the only way he knows how, by killing the person wearing it. Yeah, that's one way to get expedited onto the naughty list. What's even worse is this guy was actually nice to Art, even while Art was looking and acting like Art. The character Charles truly gets a chilling death, as he's tied to a chair and Art pours liquid nitrogen on his hands and feet, takes a hammer and smashes them to pieces. He then finishes with a heavy dosage to his face and smashes it while Charles is still begging for mercy. And just for shits and giggles, Art needs one last finishing touch for his Santa outfit, so he rips off his beard. Yeah, that's right, he needs an authentic, real beard or else he's not the real Santa. And just as you thought he was done, Art decides for good measure, he's going to take a carrot and jam it into Charles's shattered face to kind of give him this snowman resemblance. 'Tis the season. Now this might shock people, but number 4, I actually put the Dawn kill from Terrifier 1. I had this one a little bit lower just because the stakes were really low. Dawn was kind of a nothing character. She was sort of annoying, honestly. She got Tara into more trouble than she was going to do on her own.
Excuse me, can I get a picture with you?
Dawn, come on.
Shut up. What, did you think he was gonna hack me up into little pieces or something?
But this is the scene where Dawn is revealed to be upside down and naked. Art then treats her like a deer that he just hunted and he's going to prep her for dinner. She is sawed vertically with the world's strongest handsaw, apparently, but he goes all the way from middle, top, all the way through her head, cutting her clean down the middle with all of her innards falling to the ground. It is brutal, and this is really what kick-started this whole Terrifier craze, I think. Without this crazy kill, I don't know if it gained as much notoriety if it was just a normal killing. Coming in at number 3, I put the shower scene from Terrifier 3. This is probably the most talked about scene from Terrifier 3, as it sort of replicates the kill of Dawn in Terrifier 1. Cole and Mia are getting their college experience underway in the showers. Art decides that 2 is fun, but 3's a party. He decides to insert himself into the pairing, and well, you add Art the Clown, a chainsaw, and 2 naked, unsuspecting college students getting hot and heavy, I'd say you can use your imagination as to where this goes, but it truly pushes the envelope more than what you can cook up in your head. The practical effects in this one are really, really good and grotesque, and give us this semblance of realism back. The chainsaw kind of nicks a couple fingers here and there, Cole is crawling out covered in blood, Mia is backed into the corner, and she gets what she wanted. She wanted to see Art face to face to see what that evil looked like, and well, at least he left her with a little parting gift. He chases down Cole, and well, now Cole's the receiver. That's right, he goes ass first with the chainsaw and cuts him right in half. And they didn't pull any punches with this one because they do some close-up shots of the grundle area. It looked like I was watching a really gnarly episode of Jackass. Number 2, Aunt Jess from Terrifier 3. We kind of talked about this already when we talked about Terrifier 3, but I think it's worth mentioning again, and it was a very, very gruesome kill. This is where Art and Victoria take a plastic tube and shove it down Jess's throat, and when it doesn't fit, Art literally hammers it down, suffocating her, and no doubt tearing her throat up in the process. They jam it in her throat, put the rats in, and light a little fire so that they are forced to eat their way out of Jessica's throat. Thankfully, we don't have to endure that visual because Victoria just ends up slitting Jessica's throat, and we do watch these little blood-covered rats pour out of her wound and try to scramble off to safety, even though Art does get a couple on the way out, I think. And coming in at number 1 would be Allie from Terrifier 2. The most brutal decimation of a body I have ever seen in a horror film. She sort of had it coming. She wasn't going to give Art any candy on Halloween when he was creepy, but not really in the wrong. He was just trying to trick or treat. But the payback was, let's just say, excessive. He stabs her in the eye and then scalps her. And then after cutting into her back a bunch, Art breaks off one of her arms and then breaking her other hand. He then leaves the room for a little bit, thinking that, wow, maybe the worst is over. Nope. His petty ass went out to go get bleach and salt. He starts pouring it all over her wounds, and then he pulls her face off before her mother eventually discovers that Allie is somehow still alive, and Art is just eating away. Now let's get into some house potentials. What could this look like at HHN? Are they going to go full head-on into the gore? I'd say yes, and I really don't think that there's a true house to compare this to. I think the gore we're going to see in this house is going to go above and beyond what we have seen before. But I think the 2 closest that might have a comparison would be House of a Thousand Corpses and Nightingale's Blood Pit. Both of these were very, very gory, but I think they're going to push the envelope with this one. This is going to be, I think, the baseline of gore house at Halloween Horror Nights now. Do you think this house is going to be as gory as they say? Now, what scenes from this series am I expecting to see in this house? I'm expecting that we're going to see the Terrifier haunted house. Obviously, we've seen pictures of Hollywood, and that's seemingly the facade. You get the Reaper with the Terrifier logo on it. I would be very surprised if that's not how we enter this house in Orlando as well. In the Terrifier house, if you watch Terrifier 2, There's a lot of scenes. I mean, it is a haunted house, so it's fitting that would be at this haunted house. So I think we'll see a lot from that Terrifier haunted house in this one. I also think we have to throw the Dawn scene in there. I know people are questioning if that's actually feasible, but I think it is. I think if you have an Art the Clown with a saw, with this prop dummy cut in half, just covered in blood, I think that does the trick. I also think you have to have the alley bedroom scene in there. Again, Art the Clown just sitting by a bed full of goo and mush. I think that that's going to play. I don't know if we'll get this one, but I really hope we do. I hope we get to go to the Santa bar scene. I would love to see this fog-style prop being used as the liquid nitrogen as he's hammering away at this frozen Santa Claus. And then the shower scene. I don't know how we could pull this off in the house. I mean, we'd have to kind of just be walking by, but it is another iconic kill that really pushes the envelope. And if they're going full gore in this house, this has got to make the list. Now, what do you need to watch? Do you need to watch all 3 of these films? I mean, no. You can kind of just watch 2 and 3. Watching 2 and 3, you already know who Art the Clown is. 1 is sort of just these random kills. It doesn't really play into the story. Number 2 is personally my favorite. It has, like I said, the best story. Sienna is this amazing lead actress, this lead final girl. One of the best since, I'd say, Laurie or Ripley. This is just an amazing performance. So number 2 is my favorite, but if you're going to watch 2, you might as well watch 3 as well. And what does the future hold for Terrifier? Well, Terrifier 4 is going to be coming out sometime in 2026, I believe. And that's all. What's your favorite kill from the Terrifier franchise? Well, we'll see you all next time at the next Halloween Horror Nights homework video whenever the next IP drops. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and comment below what your favorite Terrifier moment is. We'll see you in the fog.